Just checking. And we're live. All right, this is great. So this is another week of Cha-Cha Chats. I'm here, Molly Jane, content manager at CoinMarketCap. And today I have with me both Bruce Fenton of Satoshi's Roundtable, as well as, I can hear myself at the same time. Okay, continuing, as well as Martin of the Peterson Institute, who was lucky enough to actually live in China when fintech and crypto really took off, and he lived there during that really interesting time. So we'll be talking about Bitcoin in China today, and both you guys can introduce yourselves a little more in case I missed anything. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Great to meet you, Martin.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm excited for this chat today.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So China, and you can talk about economics and some of the deep type of things that is on everybody's mind right now, what's going on in the world and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the big issues. One thing I'll say before we start is that if anyone is watching and you want to ask any one of us a question, although probably not me, you can go on to CoinMarketCap's Twitter and comment there. You can go on to our chat on coinmarketcap.com/chats. You can go on our YouTube where we're also live and just ask away. All right.
And if you have a tea, take a tea sip and join us.
Thank you for bringing me back to the point of this. Cha-Cha Chats. Cha-cha, which sounds like chai, which means tea in some countries and languages. We are supposed to be taking a break while having an on-chain analysis and relaxing with a cup of tea. So if you were drinking tea when you're watching this, you're doing it the right way.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Martin.
So let me share my screen if I can find the right things. Just show you all the chart. Is it working?
Not yet.
I don't see it.
Okay. It's going slowly. I think it's because I have 100 tabs up on my Chrome.
So do we all, I think.
Okay, it's saying not responding. I'll start while it's loading. I found a chart from the Bank for International Settlements, which is kind of like the central banker's central bank, and what it shows is search interest in different themes over time. And what I wanted to emphasize with the chart, which will hopefully eventually get up, maybe I should just email it. I've already emailed it so you might be able to put it up from yours.
I can share it from my screen. Oh, here it is.
Let me quickly do that. Do you have it?
Yes, downloading now.
Okay, excellent. So, so this chart shows the search interest over time in a few different terms, and I think it shows really nicely the interplay between cryptocurrency developments and geopolitical developments. We start with the huge spike in interest in Bitcoin in the beginning of 2018 and late 2017. And then that dies down for a bit. And then you can see that the excitement in the cryptocurrency space really wanted to get, inspired Facebook to get involved in there. So then you have this huge spike in interest in Libra in the second half of 2019, when that looks like it's going to maybe take over the world. And then once regulators step in and force them to pull back their ambition, that begins to decline, but partially because of Facebook. Okay, mine failed. Oh, that's fine. But because of regulation, that begins to decline. But also at the same time, then especially China is inspired by Libra to advance more quickly its decision to launch a central bank digital currency. And then as a result of China pushing really hard and accelerating its digital currency plans, now the Fed appears to be advancing central bank digital currency plans, with the most recently announced partnership with the Digital Currency Initiative at MIT, which happens to be where I learned about cryptocurrency, and I got really excited about it in 2017. So what's interesting is now what initially was something that was very much focused on being independent from any state, and not requiring any centralization has indirectly sparked a rise in central banks competing with central bank digital currency. The Fed and politicians in the United States don't want China to be leading on digital currency. China doesn't want an American company, Facebook, to be a leader in digital currency. And ultimately, what many of these central banks are trying to do is something that's antithetical to the ideals of Bitcoin. They're trying to create something that's very centralized and still depends for its value on a state. And I don't think that ultimately many of them will end up using blockchain. I can talk a little bit, if you're interested, about what China's doing with its central bank digital currency, if you'd like, but also just generally their views on cryptocurrency, which started with tons of Chinese people wanting to use Bitcoin, and still today. Recently, a report came out from Chainalysis showing that in the past year or so, about $50 billion worth of capital has flowed out of China through Bitcoin, and mainly through Bitcoin and Tether.
Wow.
And that's something that has always scared Chinese authorities, is that people in China would be able to get access to cryptocurrencies that are outside of their control, and then move the capital outside of China, where it's again outside of their control, and that they wouldn't even be able to monitor it. So it wouldn't surprise me if they clamp down on Bitcoin yet again, although they've tried to banish as much trading as possible from the country. Now what they want to do is create a lot of enterprise blockchain and try to boost their economy with that, but without any of the speculation that they associate with digital currencies. So it's quite an interesting space to watch, constantly evolving. I don't think that necessarily Xi Jinping's focus on digital currencies is going to be good for Bitcoin. If anything, they just view it as something that's too difficult to control. But it's becoming this realm of geopolitical competition. So that's kind of what I prepared for an initial set of remarks, and happy to answer some questions now.
That's great. Fascinating stuff. What are they doing? One question that comes to mind right away is when you mentioned that China is focusing on sort of more official kind of blockchain efforts, enterprise blockchains and things like that. What are they thinking with securities and securities tokens? I don't know much about, I'm super focused on the securities market, especially here in the US, but I don't really know too much about how it works in China, especially with some of the latest with securities tokens. Is that something they're looking at?
I haven't seen much movement in security tokens at this point. It's more, I think it's more managing data than managing assets at this point, just because when you get into that space, you're getting too close to what they think is sensitive, too close to what they would associate with speculation. So I think that'll eventually come once there's more of a blockchain ecosystem in China. But for now, they're just trying to keep their financial markets relatively stable instead of introducing innovations into them, because they've had some serious volatility in their stock market. And at some point, when they were trying to introduce more derivatives and futures, just the kind of stuff that we take for granted as existing in the normal traditional financial system in Western countries, some of that kind of backfired. And things are not terribly stable. So I think it'll be a little while before they're really doing too much in the way of securities tokens.
Interesting. And what about from the 100,000-foot macro view, as far as the very, very big picture things on central planning and communism and capitalism and these kind of things? I mean, what is China's plan right now? What is the next 10 years, next 100 years? I mean, are they changing it all? Are they is it, what's the big picture view on centralization? I mean, is there any sign that decentralization is a good thing, or is it just sort of a big central power and always will be?
That's a great question. So much of China's success up until now has come from actually being decentralized and letting go of state control of the markets. Like in fintech, for example, one of the most fascinating things that I found in my research is that China was actually much more open to innovation and regulated financial innovations far less than countries like the United States. Just as an example, Alipay was able to operate a mobile payment system for about 7 years before getting any regulation whatsoever. There was no license process. They just kind of, if you wanted to, like, we could have gotten together and started a payments company in China, and there would have been no, regulatory approvals required.
Wow.
So it's pretty wild that kind of Wild West environment was allowed to exist under the Communist Party. But since 2013, Xi Jinping has really doubled down on a centralization and a resurgent role of the government. The idea is that we want these big national champion companies that we can really closely control to dominate the economy, and then also to expand abroad so that they're not competing against each other, but they're competing against big multinational companies. So part of the reason that digital currencies in China were able to, take off so much, like Bitcoin in 2013, was that this process hadn't really run very far yet. That Xi was just kind of beginning to consolidate his power, so there was still a lot of chaos and kind of anything went, and that allowed, the 6 months of incredible Bitcoin boom when China was something like 90% of global demand. And it looked like Chinese demand was just going to take Bitcoin to the next level. And then, of course, the government ended up stepping in and squashing it. A lot of people think that now, people who are influential in the government and think more like Marxists think that something like digital currency might allow them to create central planning, which failed before. That, if you automate everything with smart contracts, if the state sees every transaction that happens because it's all through a central bank digital currency, that they would somehow be able to come up with equations and like manage the economy again. But I think that's absolute folly, and most serious people think that there's just no way for that to work. Unlike the Soviet Union, even in the most authoritarian time in China, the central plan only controlled a very small percentage of goods. There was still a lot of like real grassroots activity, and hopefully that will still be able to continue.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, the drawbacks of a big centralized blockchain certainly aren't decreased if you try and have an entire, massive global superpower try and manage things. So I'm 100% with you on the decreasing the central planning. One of the questions from the chat came: how much stock should we put in state media highlighting Jinping's remarks on blockchain technology as a key tech the government should focus on? And this reminds me of a question that I had that's very related, which is it true? I heard that there's sort of municipal leaders and, kind of that his word has sort of trickled down. Do you see evidence that, the municipal leaders and the lower level leaders all throughout the country are kind of have this idea that there's an initiative that they should be supporting blockchain technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So the state media do not randomly report on things that they find are interesting. They report on things that they're meant to amplify messages from the leadership. So what was really extraordinary is that not only these remarks about blockchain technology from Xi Jinping himself, which is a signal to everybody on the way down that, all the way down to even below municipal, but, like a district government official is going to see this and say, we want to signal that we're on the right side of the political line by trying to attract blockchain companies, by putting public money to try and attract them and develop homegrown ones. And then, of course, when high-level leaders come to visit, they'll take them to some, really fancy-looking demonstration zone where they'll show just how great their blockchain technology is. And essentially, what it means is that everybody's going to go rushing into the same space at the same time because of politics, and that you can imagine that most of the money is going to be absolutely wasted. Right. It's going to be, people who have no idea about blockchain, are just going to say, oh, we're going to put X on the blockchain. We're going to put our local property records on the blockchain. Nobody even knows what it is. So I looked at this and I just kind of face palmed when I saw it, because I just think these kind of initiatives usually are very wasteful, but some of it is going to be a really big deal. So one of the most interesting things in the Ant Financial's IPO prospectus, this is China's biggest fintech company. It's probably the world's biggest fintech company. It looks like they're going to IPO at a valuation of over $200 billion, which is like a Goldman Sachs and two Morgan Stanleys together. And this is a company that was, that started as just the payment processing arm of an e-commerce company. Can you imagine if like the billing service side of
so they're
Amazon?
Like PayPal, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit like a PayPal. But it even started.
Oh no! Wait a minute. PayPal was acquired later. They weren't. I was thinking they were started by. Wasn't something started by eBay and then spun off and then brought back? I don't remember. But
so eBay, eBay tried to create internal stuff. It didn't work very well. PayPal, which was an independent company, was better. But then eventually eBay bought them, and then PayPal was better than eBay. So they then re-spun it out to become an independent company.
What it was.
But PayPal is worth about like 230 billion or something right now. So Ant is like this relatively new company. It was really only formed in like 2010. It's 10-year-old company is worth as much as, the first real successful fintech company from the US. So it's really extraordinary. But anyway, what's interesting about this IPO prospectus is that they have a blockchain unit that they say is already making revenue in China. So if they were just doing a lot of stuff, saying it's okay, this is for PR to kind of show that we're doing a lot of stuff, but nobody's actually willing to pay for it, that doesn't tell you very much. But apparently they're making hundreds of millions of renminbi in revenue off of blockchain products, wow, including a lot of enterprise stuff. So like there's trade finance. That's one of the most important, like you put invoices on a blockchain system. So it's really easy for a lender to know if you actually, ordered this good that you're trying to get financed for. So this is, I think, one of the most promising applications of blockchain, at least, widespread throughout the economy, is for lending. And that's pretty cool. So there are going to be some of these big high level things from big, good companies, which are going to succeed, but then a lot of it's going to be junk.
I have a question I saw coming from the CMC chat, if I'll interject, from FinTech FOMO is the username. And FinTech FOMO writes, Martin, can you explain why Chinese crypto traders drive the crypto market so much? Why is there so much demand for crypto trading? Is it because of capital flight or boring local capital markets?
Yeah, so one of the reasons is simply that there's so much mining going on in China. And that means that, a large percent, what is about 65% or so of new Bitcoin that's created is created in China. But then that's naturally going to start flowing to areas where there is other demand. So a lot of the trading is there kind of intermediating between the Chinese miners and the rest of the world. So they're kind of in financial markets, we'd say they're a provider of liquidity to these markets. It's like the oil that allows the gears and cryptocurrency trading to work. Then there's the fact that Chinese generally, culturally, really enjoy speculation. If you look at the retail stock markets in China, it's totally wild, up and down swings, and they trade based on rumors and everything. But then they're also really excited about investing in things which allow them to get free of any of the state. So one of the things in China people don't often realize is that there's no real secure property rights in China. If the party wants to take your company away or wants to take your property away, they're going to be able to do that. So if you're able to get it outside the country into a digital currency wallet that you can use from anywhere, that's going to be a much larger benefit to someone from China than it would be to someone from the United States. And so that's another reason why there's a lot of trading. Even though the Chinese government tried to stamp it out, people find a way to get tether and then enjoy doing all this trading.
That's fascinating. Is there a lot of what's the culture like as far as control, avoiding controls for these things? Does kind of everybody run a VPN and have a secret crypto wallet somewhere around, or, and things like you just mentioned, I find it interesting how kind of casually you mentioned that, the state media says what the state wants, and we all know that, but it is sort of, chilling if you really think about it. They're just not getting correct information. I mean, what are the thoughts among, what's your feeling on the sentiment of people as far as these kind of things? Are they trying to get their own alternative news sources and run VPNs and do their own sort of underground crypto trading, or is that just a minority type of thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's very much a minority thing. People really don't really seek out foreign media sources, and part of that is just because a lot of that's not in Chinese, so it's hard for them to read. There are a lot of people read English quite well, but it's also now risky to have a VPN in China. Sometimes people have been prosecuted and called in by the police and interrogated because they're using a VPN to get access to news that the party doesn't want. Of course, everybody there knows that the party is only telling you information that it wants to share. So what you end up with is just a huge amount of rumors and gossip. The problem is that kind of rumor and gossip, if you do it online on your chats, can get you arrested too. So people are really careful about that. They still allow trading in digital currencies if you want to at your own risk. So that's less risky. But so I think the people who are trading digital currencies are they definitely have VPNs, but they're also the more sophisticated people. So what the party kind of does is it knows the sophisticated people are going to get out. They're going to get access to other information, but they try to break the link between the sophisticated people who have a view to the outside world and the average people, so that the big majority just don't really have any access to any good information or ways of storing their money that are outside the view of the party.
Wow.
There's another question from the chat, also from FinTech FOMO. So thank you to whoever you are. FinTech FOMO asks to both of you, what do we think will be the role of Chinese companies or individual developers or entrepreneurs in Bitcoin development going forward? Are they going to be isolated from the open source process?
I don't think they'd be isolated from the open source process. I think that in terms of the technical side, the Chinese government really wants Chinese entrepreneurs and engineers to be at the forefront of development in digital currency. And so far, there have been rumors for years that they're going to ban mining, but you see that still Bitcoin mining is an area that's dominated by Chinese miners, and also equipment, is that the mining equipment is produced there. So on these technical back-end sides, I would expect that there's going to continue to be a strong role, and that the government would actually encourage that, because they want this kind of experience to lead to good talent that can contribute to their more controlled blockchain developments.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think, the great thing about open source is that anybody can contribute and anybody can make stuff and give it away. And I think there's a lot of Chinese developers and entrepreneurs who understand that and get that. Clearly, any Bitcoin maximalists tend to be very open source friendly and cypherpunk friendly. And I think it's just good business practice, even if you're sort of a centralized corporate chain. I think there's a lot of value in that. You can do things open source. For Bitcoin specifically, I don't know. A lot of the developers are anonymous. There isn't any major developers that I know of that are, longtime regular contributors that are from China. But that's just that's true of a lot of the world. It's a very kind of, it's been sort of regionally focused in Europe and the US so far, but I'm sure that there will be a lot more open source projects, not just Bitcoin, but a whole bunch of open source projects. So it's just a better model. So it'll probably do well everywhere.
There's another question in the chat. This one's from Bagholder from 2017. This person.
What a great name, huh?
Yeah, for anyone watching, you can go onto the CMC chat, make an account, and change your name to almost anything. So, not anything, but not Bagholder from 2017, because that already exists. Anyway, he or she asked, with China leading, the charge for central bank digital currencies, what would the US respond with? Libra as a question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there's a lot of suspicion in China that actually the US government and probably also like the CIA and NSA and all these others are behind Libra because they want, to expand the US domination of the global financial system into the digital currency world. I think that there's a lot of projecting going on there, that in fact, China is really concerned about increasing its role in, making the renminbi a global currency. They're trying to make their tech companies become global, because really what's interesting is, Tencent and Alibaba are extremely strong, innovative companies, but both of them have had a really hard time getting users for their products abroad, whether that's e-commerce or the financial side. But you look at Facebook and it has, a couple billion users all around the world. What's been interesting, and I think the Chinese did not expect, is that US financial regulators and those in Europe and other places don't think about this question in the same way at all, and viewed Libra as more of a threat than anything that could help America continue its dollar dominance and hegemonic role in the global economy. So they pretty much quashed the whole thing, saying, no, you're not going to create a totally separate currency. And now it looks like they're going to do individual stable coins. So I think what's interesting is that Libra is not has become the opposite of a response to China's leadership in central bank digital currency. But looking at where the Fed is now, it really appears that the Federal Reserve is today where China was around 2014. In 2014, the central bank in China, the People's Bank of China, created a digital currency research institute and really in earnest started studying how they could create a central bank digital currency, started filing patents all over the place. And it seems that the Fed, I know that the Fed has been exploring it a bit for a while, but not to the serious extent that it appears is just happening now with the partnership with MIT. So I think China is still years ahead, but it's also kind of a contender and an underdog. And even if they create a successful central bank digital currency that a lot of people in China use, doesn't mean that people outside of China are going to use it. I feel like people overestimate how much it's a technical element that's holding back the renminbi, and more just the fact that people can't freely use it. China has these capital controls. And so especially if they start programming innovative stuff into the money, which allows them to control it more, then, are you going to want to hold a digital renminbi that doesn't pay you any interest that the Chinese government could just make disappear out of your wallet tomorrow? I mean, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, especially if we have increased tensions with, this very unusual world that we're in right now. Anything can happen, and hopefully it will be peaceful over the next decade or so. But we gotta be aware and cautious.
There is one more question in the chat. I'll just say, when you were talking about how the US is compared to China, and that it reminded me of an interview I had with Christopher Giancarlo, who's the crypto dad, the former CFTC commissioner, who's working to create the US digital dollar. And when I asked him whether he thought the US was a leader in digital currencies, central bank ones, he just said no. And then that was the end of the question. So we have a lot of work to do. All right, last question from the audience, and then we'll probably the last question of the Chats is from FinTech FOMO again, who asks, how does the US election outcome affect China? Oh, there's two. Well, okay, I'll do them both. How does the US election outcome affect China/US attitudes to cryptocurrencies? That's question number one. And question number two is, do you see a situation where these digital fiat currencies end up on crypto markets, like wrapped Bitcoin and then wrapped BTC and DCNY for the Chinese currency trading on Uniswap? They're very different questions, so answer them in whatever order you want.
I'll take the second question first, which is the central bank in China wants to only allow the digital renminbi to be transacted on wallets that it approves. So at this point, with the fact that they've chased every major cryptocurrency exchange out of the country and blocked their websites, I think it's probably a long ways away that they would allow the digital renminbi to be traded in this way. It's not going to be as freely usable as, maybe a digital US dollar would be able to do that, but probably not a renminbi. And then in terms of the election outcome, I don't necessarily think there would be too much difference at this point, just because it doesn't seem to have been much of a priority in the Trump administration to develop digital currency. And I haven't seen too much talk about it from the Biden camp, although I think, the Biden camp wouldn't want China to get too far ahead. So maybe there would be actually more push to develop digital currencies and stay competitive with China under a Biden administration.
I guess we'll find out what happens in a few months. With that, I guess we'll end our chats. It's been lovely talking with you guys. I've been drinking my, I'll say, in my cat mug, just a black tea with milk, even though I'm not British. Just what I felt like today. Also, if anyone watching, you guys can say where to find you on social media or where we can find your research or anything.
Yeah, all my work is public on the Peterson Institute webpage. It's PIIE.com. And if you if you look under experts, you can find me. And I've written some stuff about China's central bank digital currency and also about ICOs and some other fun things. So
Great. And Peterson Institute is excellent for those of you who haven't checked out their content. It's very, I think high-end, smart, well thought out stuff. And what I love about it is that it doesn't have, like a socialist and statist kind of focus. It's more, I think, more objective and sound economics based. So I'm a big fan. So thank you very much for everybody joining. Oh yeah, and I'm on Twitter, and Bruce Fenton is my name if you're looking for me as well. So thanks for joining us, and I hope you join us again. And it was great to meet you, Martin. It was really wonderful to hear all this stuff. Certainly at the top of everybody's mind, China and cryptocurrencies, two of the biggest topics in the world right now, and what a world it is. So thank you very much. Thanks, Molly, and everybody. It was great to see you. This has been great.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.